This is Pitchdeck Asia. We are in the Asia Tech Podcast studio. My name is Graham Brown. I am joined by Ian Lowe. Ian, welcome.
Thanks. Nice to be here. It's an awesome setup.
Thank you. It's good to have you here. We're going to talk about travel, hospitality, travel, all of that. So maybe we can start at the top. We're gonna have a look at your pitch deck, walk through the pitch deck, look at the journey that you've been on, look at the problem that you're solving, the solutions that you have, your hypothesis, and so on about what's going on in the hospitality space. A little bit about your background, Ian. First, you're born and bred in Singapore.
Yep. Born and raised. Was studying in NUS in Singapore.
Yeah.
Started my first company actually 6 years ago.
Right.
Education tech space.
Yeah, you're a bit of a teacher, aren't you? So, I mean, teaching entrepreneurship and so on.
Yeah, pretty much. We wanted to kind of expose youth to startups and entrepreneurship. I think that was what we felt was lacking then.
Yeah.
Then being an Asian, I need to make good use of my degree.
Yeah.
So
what was your degree?
Finance in NUS business. So I went to the investment side for a while, did venture capital for a year in Beijing.
Yeah. Wow, that was a good experience.
Yeah, it was really exciting.
Which fund were you with?
It's actually a Singapore-based fund under Quest. So we were kind of managing Singapore portfolios and then trying to help them to kind of leverage into the China space.
That's a good experience in terms of looking at the different paces of venture capital, maybe like in Beijing, especially in Beijing, right? Was that a bit of an eye-opener for you?
For sure. I think the startups there are much more hungry.
Yeah.
But it gives me the opportunity to sit on the other side of the table as well.
Good.
See kind of what they're looking for, what VCs are kind of, it's important to them.
Yeah. I was in Shanghai and I spent some time recently at China Accelerator.
Oh, yeah.
And it was on a national holiday.
They're huge.
Yeah, no, it's great. And met William Balbine and all the team there, and some of they have a lot of advisors and part of the community there. It was a national holiday, and the place was full, right? And there were startups everywhere, and everybody was like just grinding away, hustling on a day off when the rest of the world was taking a day off, right?
Yeah.
So it was a great experience. I mean, great that you went to Beijing and saw how they do it there, and that sort of hunger, because it's all sometimes a challenge here, isn't it? In Singapore, lots of safe jobs in finance, for example.
I think that's even for all of us, like the opportunity cost is really high to start a startup. So I think that was why we wanted to kind of expose youth for my first startup to startups and entrepreneurship. Yeah,
that's right. Opportunity cost.
Yes.
You're risking a lot. You're risking your pension, your CPF, and all of that.
Yep.
So why did you choose to become an entrepreneur? Just out of interest, if you know the opportunity. You took finance. You could have gone into banking. You could have gone into financial services, insurance, fintech, even maybe on the, inside a large bank. You could have done all the innovation there. Why did you choose then to become an entrepreneur yourself?
I think I ask the question to myself every day. I'm actually gonna give a guest lecture in NUS tomorrow as well. So like, my general advice is don't start a startup. So I
be
think
a contrarian, right?
Yeah,
I like that.
But I think if the passion or the need for you to start this business is strong enough to push you forward in terms of giving up your $5,000-$6,000 a month salary and kind of eat Maggi noodles, instant noodles every day, kind of stuff. For me, it's really about impact. Wanted to kind of make a difference. I found investments and even venture capital really challenging, and I loved it. But I think on that side, I feel like I wasn't contributing as much as I would love to. I was managing portfolios. I was helping other people achieve their goals, help rich individuals earn more money. But I felt like I wasn't kind of contributing to making innovation and change. So that was more like a personal kind of need, I guess.
Something meaningful.
Yeah, something meaningful. Yeah, definitely.
Where does that start? I'm always curious when I sit with entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur myself. And 20 plus years, I haven't had a proper job. Yeah, come on. So where does that start? That you have that sort of entrepreneurial vibe in your blood, and you want to make something, maybe what were you when you were younger? Were you a programmer? Were you a maker of stuff? Were you a hustler? What kind of entrepreneur were you?
Yeah, I think we never kind of knew that it is entrepreneurship. We were doing small businesses. We were trying to make money. It was just kind of interest and like, even like when I was really young, so I was like 5 or 6, we would take, like my parents would bring me to the park and I would take my second-hand kind of toys to sell it.
Right at
Yeah.
5?
Yeah, so like, you know, they just say like, oh, you want new toys and you don't want your old toys anymore, try to do it. Now there's carousel, right?
Right.
But in the past there wasn't.
You were carousel back there, right?
Yeah, so I was my own carousel, but yeah, kids would walk by and then I would just go like, oh, you know, they'll say like 50 cents and then
Right.
like, it was a lot of money to me. Obviously not the cost of the toy. So yeah,
right.
but it was just that interest to kind of do like, if you watch like army kind of shows in Singapore, there's always this lobang king. Yeah, I was kind of that in army as well. Yeah, so
What was that? Explain.
So lobang king is like the guy that always has all the goods to sell.
Ah, the hustler. Yeah, he's
like,
he's got a bit of on the make always, right?
Yeah. So like you have things and then you just bought this from the army market and then like, you know, everybody looks at it and like, oh, that looks really good, and then you just like, oh, I can buy it for you.
Yeah.
You know, then
I
you
can
just
do
do a
your
markup.
deal.
Yeah. You just do a markup, you know, kind
Right.
of stuff. Yeah, but that was kind of the things that I've been doing.
Yeah.
So my first kind of stint, exposure to startups was a gaming console rental company. I started when I was kind of in the army. So we kind of rented it out. And
Are you allowed to talk about this on air? Are you allowed to have a job whilst you're in the army?
Well, that's a good question. So I call it a project.
Okay,
So
it's a
yeah,
project,
but it was just mainly to get a Wii, like to get the Wii at the time, right? So it was not to scale. And I think once I got exposed to startups and entrepreneurship, I was like, shit, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that was why we did kind of expose more kids to it. But education, truth be told, is not my cup of tea. So I'm not big on education.
Well, formal education, you mean?
Yeah, but even like the training, the teaching. So you said I'm a teacher, I'm like, maybe not. But like,
well, there's different ways of teaching, isn't there? There's teaching somebody in a class and then teaching them through example and like mentoring.
Yes.
And I imagine like going back to yourself as you were a kid. I imagine five years old in the park, your parents said to you, look, you know, Ian, if you want new toys, you have to sell the old ones. Right?
Yeah.
So in a way, they taught you a lesson quite early on that you know there's not an unlimited pipeline of toys coming into this household. It has a value, and that taught you to sell and taught you the value of selling, which is still with you today, right?
Yeah. I'm really glad that kind of brought about when I was much younger.
That's a great lesson.
Yeah. Parenting is the next thing I would want to go into.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's the hardest startup of all, right?
When I'm a parent myself, so
Oh, well, to be continued. Let's dive into Trabble.
Yep.
Okay. So we can understand this is your startup right now. If we can have a look at the pitch deck, maybe we can start that. I want to start before we sort of look at what the solution is. If we could dive right to the end of your pitch deck, because I think it's important to show the money. The top of the bat, right? You know, the market. We're talking about global tourism. We're talking about hospitality.
Yep.
The market opportunity first. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about Asia, the Asian travel market, the Asian hospitality market. How do you define your market?
So I think just based off this slide alone, it doesn't say entirely everything. But Singapore itself is already huge in terms of tourism. We're the top 10 cities of the world, and we actually went into Tokyo about late last year.
Okay.
So we actually have two Japanese investors that invested in our company as well to help us enter the market. But our main focus was to kind of penetrate the market before the Olympic Games to help English-speaking travelers, right? So I think the market is huge, and especially in Asia where English-speaking staff might be expensive, costly, difficult to find. So what we were trying to do is to help these companies or business travel-related companies to serve their guests better.
Yeah.
And from there, how can we then leverage them to kind of use additional services? So you see Klook, you see KKday, you see all these travel-related companies. A lot of money goes into marketing. A lot of money goes into like selling the tickets and customer acquisition. For us, what we're trying to focus on is to focus on the B2B business and then to help them serve their guests. So I don't need to engage my own customers in that sense.
Okay, good. Well, let's start with the problem then. If we jump back from... So if you're following along on the podcast, we just had a look at the value of the market. Was 8 trillion, wasn't it?
That's huge, yeah. So I think travel itself as a global market is $8 trillion.
Yeah.
And it's been said that 80% of these companies would want a chatbot. I think automation is key right now in this day and age.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. And the problem with all of that is what?
It's a huge problem. So I have so many points on it. I don't even know where to focus on it.
But you've mentioned one, which is speaking English and like Japan as an example, right?
So language is a barrier.
Yeah.
And that's for sure. the lack of knowledge and information. So we use different platforms here. We use, say, Grab, and Uber is not available now. But different countries use different platforms. So the market is really fragmented. So if I go to Japan now, I have to use Nippon Taxi. I can use Google Maps. I can use the subway platforms. Food recommendations, they don't have Hungry Go Where. So every different kind of platforms in different countries are very unique. And that's what we want to try to help to breach.
Right.
Yeah, and obviously the manpower cost is high, especially with the language barrier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Without preempting your solution, what I would like in this situation as a traveler is if I was to go to these countries, I would like an assistant, right? An assistant that runs around with me and translates everything as I go. Obviously, that's an expensive solution, not particularly logistically doable.
Yeah, I think if you're a crazy rich Asian, that would be fine.
Okay, crazy rich Asian, and I had a private jet. That's all cool.
You have a personal concierge beside you. I think that is a solution, but that's not available or affordable to most people.
So where are we going with this? How do we solve the problem of a fragmented travel market? What do we do? Let me start. What's your hypothesis with that first, without getting to the solution first? What is your idea about how to go and solve the travel market that other people aren't approaching?
So I think for us, what we feel will be very important for travelers is to be able to get information quickly and fast and accurate, and to be able to get it from a reliable source. And generally, those reliable sources are the people that they engage with, being their hotels or the airlines. So they trust these people. And the thing about this is that these companies are then not doing as much as they can to fully engage their guest.
Right.
Yeah, because there are so many things that they do know that the guest would not.
Right.
Yeah, but because of the cost, because of manpower needs, because of all this kind of additional cost that is borne by the travel business, that they were not able to kind of give that kind of 100% crazy rich Asian person to follow you around.
Right, exactly. So what is the solution there? We're going to have a look at the pitch deck again. We'll dive into the solution page. So tell me what we're looking at here. It says seamless chat-based guest engagement.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we're trying to do for a B2B business. We are trying to help travel businesses build a seamless chat-based guest engagement platform. They're able to kind of use chatbots to help answer the repetitive and menial questions that they get every day from every traveler. And then what we want to do is to kind of train this and for the agents to be able to answer the questions all on our platform. So you can have Facebook, you can have your website, you can have email, you can have multiple channels of contact us, but all of it to go through our system. First layer to try the chatbots to try to answer the questions. If that's not possible, then we can push it to your agent and it all is managed on one platform.
So let's say I'm a hotel in Akasaka in Tokyo, right? As an example. It's sort of a businessy type area of Tokyo, so there may not be. I mean, what tends to happen is if you're a traveler going to Tokyo, you end up in, you end up in all different kinds of places, right, in Tokyo, because there isn't one place which says this is the center of Tokyo, because it is huge, right? So let's say I end up in Akasaka. What, and I have a hotel there, and I have Chinese tourists, and I have lots of tourists from Southeast Asia now. And English-speaking tourists, so I'm getting all kinds. And now, I mean, for example, Tokyo, obviously tourism is increasing rapidly. And there's a big push, isn't there? I mean, in the run-up to the Olympics, but there's a big push in Japanese inbound tourism. What would I firstly, where do I start with this? I mean, where's your solution for me? Let's say a big portion of my hotel business is now foreign, right? And actually, I've noticed something as well. I don't know if you noticed it, because I used to live in Japan, and I've noticed that there's a large number of what used to be love hotels now becoming foreign tourist hotels, right? Because now they can make a lot more money out of tourists than they can get out of love hotel customers, right?
Other than the weekends, but
the weekends. Right? Maybe, I don't know if they can convert it over, right? So there's a huge demand, right? I mean, because love hotel business is very profitable, but now foreign tourists are coming in. So what do I need? Where do I start with this?
So I think what we're trying to do is make it simple for them. All they need to go is to go onto our platform, answer that same repetitive 30, 40 questions that they get every day. And once they answer that, the bot just gets live on their platform.
Right.
So they get to change it, they get to edit it, they get to add more questions or answers to that. But what we want to do was just to make it so simple for them that they don't even have to manage it. And once they have it on their Facebook, their website, they can easily manage all queries on our platform.
Right. So it's a bot effectively,
Yes.
and then will it interface with all those different platforms? It'll be able to interface with Facebook, and it'll be able to talk to you through email and so on.
Yeah, so we'll interface with multiple platforms that they are holding. Unfortunately, WhatsApp is not available yet for bots. But the more channels, the more they kind of save in terms of managing multiple channels. But I think the beauty of it is that we're not just helping this one hotel answer your questions. If one hotel puts in all these FAQs, 10 hotels do that the same, and attractions do that as well. Tour operators do that as well. What we have is a whole ecosystem of FAQs.
Right. Okay. So there'll be like commonly shared questions, like, for example, what times is the train station shut?
Yes.
The nearest one, right?
Yeah. So we integrate with local platforms as well. If you want to call a taxi, this is the taxi company that they use here. So all you need to do is tell me where's your start point, where's your end point, what time you need it, how many people.
Right.
And I can send you a cab.
Yeah.
Right? So I think there are a lot of common platforms that these hotels and attractions can share. And more than that, if I'm staying at this hotel at Akasaka, for example, I'm going to do Tokyo Skytree. If Tokyo Skytree is also one of our customers, all their FAQs are in our system. And you ask about ticket prices, you ask about opening hours. All this we can pull from our database.
Right. So a part of that obviously is natural language processing, right? Because you're able to deal with questions and work out what the hell they're actually asking you.
Yep.
And there's also a part which is to do with how much of that information is specific to that attraction and how much is generic to so how do you deal with that? Because there may be questions that people are asking which are specific to a restaurant, and there may be a question which is specific to an area, so which is not really a natural language type question. It's more about categorizing everything. So how does all that sort of fall into place?
You definitely know your stuff.
Yeah, well, I'll share a secret. And for those of you that listen, I graduated in artificial intelligence in wait for it, 1995.
Well, it's not that far from my CTO. So my CTO,
There you go. So maybe we both programmed on
young then,
16 megabyte computers, right? All right, over to you.
Yeah. So I think in terms of the NLP side of things, it is very difficult. So we do kind of leverage on existing platforms because obviously the big boys have that technology that we not necessarily have. But how we kind of push the information to the specific generic categories that you were talking about. So if it's very, very kind of hotel specific or very attraction specific, if you're landing on a page, you don't want to get access to all the other hotels FAQ, right? So how we segregate that, and then other than your own internal property FAQs, we also separate a country or city FAQ. So how we understand that, first we have to push it down a layer to either specific property or generic country, and then from there we kind of break that down into multiple categories. Right. So it is not proprietary in terms of the NLP itself, which is, I think it's great because the big boys definitely have the resources to do that. But how we kind of flow that questions down, that intelligence. Yeah. So that's proprietary to us.
How does that compare to, let's say, a TripAdvisor? So I mean, if I was typing in those questions, they're going to come up on Google, right? TripAdvisor is going to be on that page one. Like, how do I get from Akasaka to Skytree, for example? That's the kind of thing people are going to ask. Can I walk? Can I get a taxi? And then TripAdvisor comes up with the page because SEO is pretty good. But generally, obviously I don't want to knock on TripAdvisor, but I find it quite difficult to get answers from that website because I have to go through like 12 pages of like answers and comments, and then it's like at the end, this thread is closed, right? And it was updated 4 years ago. So how does it? I mean, that's sort of traditional way of doing it, isn't it? I mean, how is this an improvement on that in terms of the actual results?
So I mean, exactly what we were trying to say. We are not B2C, we are B2B. So we are B2B2C in terms of like, a guest will never find us on Google, or at least I don't expect so. So if they say they search that on Google, what we're hoping is that they will ask the same question to the hotels, to the attractions, the places that they trust. So it's not TripAdvisor per se. They go to their hotel's Facebook and say, how do I get from the hotel to Tokyo Skytree?
So everything's message based as opposed to like storing the content somewhere in public. Okay, got it. Okay, let's have a look at the model, if we may. If we can jump back into the pitch deck. Because you've alluded to the technology and how it works. Let's have a look at actually how you're making money out of this. So,
I think it's
business model. There we go. So where is the money in all of this?
oh, where is the money?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
always the question.
That is the question everybody wants to know.
So
right?
I think, for us, what we started off was implementation. So we charge a cost to bigger kind of bodies, like hotel groups, 5-star hotel groups, ferry company that we just integrated with. So we charge them a high customization cost, and that actually kind of helped us to build the technology for it. So we actually use that to build the technology. And now that we have a more stable technology, we are trying to build this self-onboarding platform where the subscription model comes in. So the smaller hostels, the small attractions, your small museum of oddities or something, they can actually just do a self-onboarding.
Right.
And they manage it themselves. So the big companies would probably still want that service. They still want that kind of support. And that's where we come in. Eventually, where we are going down is that B2B2C market. So if you come on to, say, the hotel's platform, which is a small hostel, they're not paying us much. They're paying us like $100 a month.
Right.
What they do is then they ask about, how do I go to Tokyo Sky Tree? And we give them the directions, and then we prompt them to ask if you want to buy tickets.
Okay.
And because we can get tickets at cheaper, because say if Tokyo Sky Tree is one of our customers, then we profit share with the hostel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine as well, even though, so what you're saying is that even a low entry, low cost, and low margin small hotel, for example, may not yield a lot of revenues for immediately. There's a lot of cross-selling opportunities there as well. But they're also adding to the sort of net, pool of knowledge, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they're also contributing content.
Yep.
So the more of those that you have, the better.
Yep.
Right?
That's for
Is
sure.
that how it works?
So I think if you see it the same way as, say, so Zopim got acquired by Zendesk. Zopim is pretty much a live chat as well, without the bots, without the they are starting with some bots, but what it is just a subscription, like $100 a month, and we are kind of going down that same path. But more than the $100 a month, these companies are coming in with content, like you're saying, services that tickets at a cheaper price. So I think that's something that we are trying to build in terms of the ecosystem.
Would you ever offer up for free in any circumstances that
if given the right funding and we have enough to scale?
There you go. All right, well, let's talk about that as well. Let's talk about your journey. If we jump back into the pitch deck, we're talking about how far you've come now. So we have this graphic here from where we are. So you launched in May 2018.
Yes. So we're actually pretty new. So we actually incorporation wise, we started in 2017.
Yeah.
But I think most of the first year we were focusing on the technology, and we were actually going down the B2C path. So we actually pivoted quite a bit. The B2C path was monetization was tough.
Yeah.
I think obviously getting to the top of SEO for Google was definitely
You were being like
possible.
trying to be like a trip advisor, but a bit
pretty
more
much, but just a concierge of sorts. Yeah. So, but that wasn't wasted, I think, because that kind of built the city information. So that kind of built that initial base of technology, initial base of content. And from there, we started doing more sales in the B2B side.
Right. So you've been focusing on B2B since May.
Yes.
Okay. And your journey so far, I know you've mapped it out here. Obviously, you've targeted Tokyo.
Yeah.
And we're based here in Singapore, obviously. Are your team is all based here in Singapore?
So we have the core team based here in Singapore, and then we have developers offshore as well. So we have developers in Vietnam. We have designers overseas as well, but our core team is here.
Right. So I'm looking at your team here on the pitch deck. You've got 6 of you. Is that the team here at the core team?
Yes, and then we have 2 based in Japan.
2 based in Japan.
Yeah,
and what are they doing? Like sort of sales type
Mostly
roles?
just sales and business development.
Acquisition.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right, let's talk about the fundraise. So how have you funded yourself until now?
So we have gotten some convertible notes from a Japanese MNC and an Indonesian telco infrastructure company. So those 2 kind of tied us through the initial stages with a lot of support from the Singapore government. So the Singapore Tourism Board kind of gave us a grant for it, and then sales as well. So we have been kind of leveraging on that tree.
Yeah.
I think now why we're looking at raising is to kind of be able to scale. So your question as to whether we'll ever give it free.
Yeah.
I mean, if we have enough money, then that scaling would be the crux of it, right?
Yeah.
So we are going down a more conservative path, saying that we want to raise this amount of money, 600,000 for pre-money 3 million, just to be able to get to this scale.
Right.
So
but you have sales already, right?
Yeah, we do have sales.
Okay.
So I think it's just to get us to the next level, to validate the scalability of it, how replicable we can be. And I think that's what we wanted to prove, at least to go to Series A. And once, once we reach that kind of stage, whether we go to the different path, whether we build our own OTA, that will be something that we will look into.
Do you foresee yourself spending more time in Japan? I mean, as the founder, where would you? I mean, things growing, raising the money.
Yeah.
Where are you going to be?
So I'm currently split half.
Yeah.
And I'm actually gonna be in Seoul
Right.
in 2 weeks time. Yeah, so it's one of the Ace kind of invited us to pitch at an investor event.
Okay.
So that will be one of our efforts as well to fundraise. And Seoul is a city that we have targeted. So yeah, I'm splitting myself between a few countries. But because our company kind of works very well remotely, and so it kind of works very well in that. And I guess as a travel company, gonna be in multiple countries.
You have to love travel.
Yeah, and that needs to be it, right? That needs to be kind of the way
If you
we
hate
work.
travel, you're in the wrong place. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how was it with your experience in Japan? You know, how have you found that? Because it's not an easy market to crack from the outside, and many brands, multinationals, have failed.
Yep.
I mean, obviously Vodafone, SoftBank is a great example, but there've been plenty like that. You know, how is it for you, sort of getting into Japan?
I think we were very lucky to be able to get an investor, a Japanese investor, to help us get in. They are actually one of the big MNCs, and they have helped us open up a lot of inroads. Sales is obviously tough, so it takes a longer sales lead time. They're a lot more traditional, which is why we need a Japanese team. I'm not sure if we actually need a Japanese team if we go to Vietnam or Bangkok.
No.
So I think Japan itself is very specific in terms of the culture, but it's also because of that it is such a blue ocean for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as well, Japan has, even though it's quite traditional, there's a very well established and very large market of small retailers and people in the hospitality space, so like small hotels who tend to be individual hotels, not part of a chain, boutique, or just like family hotel. Yeah, love hotels. There's plenty of that. I mean, you can see it in the retail market where there's a lot of. It seems to be like very traditional part of Japan. Like there's that, these are people who are not necessarily interested in owning chains of hotels. It's just a lifestyle thing for them. But these are very profitable businesses. And there's a lot of that as well. And they don't necessarily have the resources to go out and do this stuff themselves. So that exists. So if you can crack that market, they may be, more traditional than Singapore in their approach. But, with a local Japanese point of presence, there's no reason why they shouldn't take on these services, right?
So I think something that was really interesting for us, when we found out, was that the tourism board, the Tokyo Tourism Board, they call it the metropolitan government, they actually put out a kind of advisory that if you don't have this kind of requirements, you cannot be listed as a Tokyo Olympic Games partner hotel.
Yeah.
And one of the requirements was to be able to have English speaking staff, to be able to serve English in 24 hours, 24/7. So what we're trying to do is to help them bridge that gap.
Yeah, exactly. That sometimes is a great motivator, fear of missing out, as opposed to jumping on an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to work with both. Very interesting. So, Ian, we have people who watch this show, listen to the podcast, who also are interested in startups that they can join. So tell us a little bit about you in terms of the recruitment at the moment. Who are you recruiting? What kind of people? What kind of attitude? What you're looking for specific hard skills? What markets are you looking at?
So we're always recruiting.
Endless.
I mean, every startup.
Yeah.
So I think that's the most kind of active in job search in the market. So I think it's always about the right fit, the right person, right? So I think it's about finding the right people that can work well together. We work very remotely, very autonomously, very independently. So accountability is huge. We need to make sure that everybody is right on track, on the ball. The vision is the same. Those are really tough to justify. It's not really tangible. I think the more tangible ones are more in terms of skill sets. So in skill sets, so like developers, we use specific like PHP or Java for certain areas. And I think those my CTO will probably be best able to help answer those questions. On the design space, we definitely don't really need a front-end design. We don't have UI UX per se, but we do have that for our platform, so enterprise platform. So we still need kind of that, and conversational UI is the most interesting. So because that's kind of not so researched upon yet. So conversational UI is tough in the space. So somebody that is even in literary arts, kind of relevant. Business and sales side is just hustling, right? It's always about hustling.
We always need hustlers,
so
right?
B2B, I think if they have experience in travel, that's perfect. But we kind of take in people that are hustlers and with no experience.
Like yourself, but with you have the experience, but yourself starting out,
but
hustlers.
Not even in the industry, like travel industry per se, right? So I think that's something that we all kind of need to kind of grasp upon. Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned that obviously hustlers, designers, and the dev guys, right? And you mentioned, for example, like working autonomously, being accountable, and so on. I mean, these are important things. I'm curious to know above that, what have they got to love to do? Because if somebody comes to you in a job interview, they're going to tell you everything you need to know, and they're going to, polish up very well. I can work all right on my own. What are you looking for that they've done with their life? I mean, have they got to be passionate about travel? How do you see that? Have they got to be entrepreneurial? How do you see that? Often it's the stuff that's not written on the CV or the resume that's of interest, right? Is there particular telltale signs that you're looking for?
So I think even when I explain to people, we're not travel per se. We are actually hospitality driven more than we are travel driven. So we're helping inbound travelers. So I think the one to serve, the one to help people travel better, I think that's one of the key areas. We do have people that have experience in like service stuff, like front desk for hotels. And those people actually bring in really great insights because they have been interacting with guests. They know the questions that come in every day. I think obviously grit and determination is always a key. But I think all this are really difficult to tell, I think. I think it takes a bit of time. So we do get people on, and then we realize at a certain point in time that it might not be a good fit. And then we decide that, it might be... I think as a startup, we need to be a lot more kind of flexible.
Yeah, and the people you recruit have to know that as well.
Exactly.
You take them on and you say, okay, let's try this out.
Yeah. And it does, I mean, people do say that it hurts morale and company morale, but I think people that know that they are staying kind of builds on that as well, because you know that this is a good fit and I'm doing way better than what others are coming in and going. So I think hire fast, fire fast is still one of the kind of philosophies that we try to adopt. But I think ultimately it's just trying to find the right people. Obviously, HR will come to be a big issue when we're a bit bigger.
Right, well, you are HR right now.
Now I'm everything. So.
Exactly. And people got to understand that as well. I think back to Tony Hsieh delivering happiness from Zappos when he was talking about how he recruits. I mean, there's many things that he talks about recruitment. I like the fact that one of the most indicative signs of whether or not that person will fit in a service business, a very front-facing business like Zappos, was not necessarily what they said in the interview, but what they said before the interview. And he would go to the taxi driver who picked up the candidate. So, the candidate would get in the taxi to take them to the Zappos HQ. And Tony Hsieh would go back to the taxi driver and say, so tell me, what were they like with you? And if they were like rude or like, offish with the taxi driver, then you know that that's how they really are, on a bad day, right? So in your sense, it's like, okay, talking about hospitality rather than travel, right? Those front desk people, some of those people are amazing, even though they haven't sort of had startup experience or tech experience, they're just really good with people and they have great insights. Those are the kind of people that you want on board, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's definitely some area that we definitely look out for. So I think the willingness to serve.
Excellent. Ian Lowe, everybody, founder of Trabble. It's been delightful having you on the show today. What would be the most effective way for anybody that's listening or watching to reach out to you? What's your preferred channel?
Not sure if I'm going to give my personal number on the public forum, but you can drop me an email, ian@trabble.co.co. We do have a hiring one, which is join us at trabble.co. It's a very interesting process. It's fully automated. After all, we're in the automation business. So if you drop us a mail, we come back with a mail, you fill up a form, we kind of pre-select a lot of stuff automatically. Hopefully you don't realize it. That would be the best scenario.
Well, you're giving it away now. So
so hopefully, if you kind of give us that feedback on top of experience, that would be great.
Ian, thank you so much for today.
Thank you for having me.